Hey, everybody. Do you ever feel alone or outgunned when you look at the enormous amount of influence being pushed onto your kids by the secular culture around us? I mean, really, you've got the US government, the media, the entertainment industry, the entire educational system, and pretty much a big chunk of corporate America trying to push your kids away from Jesus at the same time that you're trying to build an unshakable faith in Jesus into them. Now, that struggle right there can feel sometimes like you're trying to boil the entire ocean with a big lighter. It's like fat chance of success, right? Well, the good news is you are not alone. And that battle I'm talking about is exactly why Legacy Family Ministries exists. Legacy Family Ministries exists to come alongside parents just like you to give you all the tools and all the resources and the encouragement that you need to build an unshakable faith into your kids. We build you up in your faith so you can build them up in theirs. Now, we've had some special requests from some of our givers and some of our listeners to take some time out of our normal work that we do and talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how we can best minister to you. So that's what we're going to do today. Stay with us for the rest of the show, and we will walk through this together.
I would say I've always been very confused with my gender identity.
Abortion can be another word for mercy.
People are suffering.
Could put
People are dying.
half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
Are collapsing.
Every city in the United States has become much
That's the solution.
Well, welcome, everybody. We are Legacy Family Ministries, and this is the Unshakable Faith podcast. Like I said a moment ago, we're going to take time out from our usual conversations today, and we're going to spend this conversation talking to you a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how we can best minister to you. I'm Dr. Steve Hubler.
I'm Amy's son.
And I'm Melissa Hubler. And if you'd like to know us on a deeper level than just what you're hearing here today on this podcast, come over to our website. It's legacyfamilyministries.com. And we have blogs, we've got resources, we've got lots of things that you can download, all kinds of things that will help you to develop the faith of your family.
Well, let's kick off our conversation today by answering the question of why Legacy? Why on earth do you guys exist? Why do you get up every morning to do this ministry? Well, I think answering the question why first is probably a good way to start because it'll give us a little bit of context for the kinds of things that we do and how we can best help you as a Christian parent. So I just kind of want to open it up and talk through some of the whys. I know there's a lot of things that roll into this, but for me, I think one of the biggest things that was pressing on me before God led me to start this ministry back in 2017 was the increasing percentage of kids that are walking away from their faith when they reach adulthood. I know when I started in the pastorate a long time ago, people are always, they've got a range of this, but a lot of the commentators and authors were saying it was about half of the kids were walking away, and it got progressively more. And then everybody was saying it's 2/3 that are walking away. And now the numbers that I hear are closer to 70%. And I'm starting to hear that consistently.
It's a ton.
Yeah. And it's like, it's heartbreaking and it's not okay.
Yeah.
And I know we did a whole series of conversations on this not that long ago. It was only about a month or so ago that we did this. And I recognize that there's a lot of reasons why our kids might choose to walk away from Jesus and walk away from the church. But the one that really stood out to me the most, and this is the one that I start seeing come up again and again and again as kind of the baseline reason, is that most of these children that in some cases that we've poured our lives into, they're walking away from the church. They're deciding to walk away from their faith because they never really had an established personal relationship with Jesus in the first place. And it's like, that's actually encouraging to me because that's a solvable problem. But that was one of the ones that really got me into this particular ministry. What do you guys think?
Well, as a teacher, I was a teacher for 23 years, 19 of those in the classroom, and the last 8 years at a local Christian elementary school. I was observing a lot of things starting to take place over time. And also I had young children myself. So watching them in church and the way that they were learning, and their friends, what was happening with their friends is they were starting to embrace the LGBTQ philosophy. They're starting to go the way of the world. Church kids, Christian homes. In the schools, I was seeing parents who really didn't know how to parent, and they didn't know how to respond when situations arose. So there was a lot of freaking out moments. There was a lot of reacting instead of responding. And because they didn't know how to do it themselves, then they're training their children up in the only things that they know, which is kind of more of a panic mentality. It wasn't that they didn't want their children to be raised in the Lord. They did. I mean, they were putting them in Christian school. So there was an element of wanting it, but it was that they didn't know how to do it themselves. So because they didn't know how to raise their children in the Lord, it became somebody else's job to do what they didn't know how to do. So when the Lord called me out of teaching and into this ministry, he gave me this vision of, and he told me that young moms are out there wanting to raise their children in the Lord, but they're crying out to him saying, I don't know how. And so that became the directive for me in going into this ministry, was to train moms in how to raise their children in the Lord. So very practical, hands-on. What do you do in your home? And we did it a lot as kind of experiments when our kids were younger. Like, what would happen if we did this? If we lived on mission and debriefed with our kids afterwards, what would the end result be? So that's how a lot of what we do and how we raised our children came. Kind of experimental, but it's developed into this ministry where, all right, we've lived it. We see the fruit in our own families. Now let us teach you how to do that. And not just the how, but that you need to do this, so that parents are given authority by God to raise their children in the Lord. And it's nobody else's job, nobody else's responsibility to do that. It's the parents' responsibility. So that's kind of a big part of what we're here for, is to help you know that you need to, and then the practicality of how to do it.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what you said, Amy, you were talking about mentoring women. I just want the guys to know that we haven't forgotten about you. We do have resources for you. You need them just as much as the girls. But Amy, you're the director of women's mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of your titles.
My things, yeah.
It's funny because, in a small organization, you always get more than one title. So you are our child discipleship specialist and director of women's mentorship. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that we try to give as much attention to the guys and the dads as we do the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've seen the importance of that in research, that the number one way that faith is transported or is given to children is through the father, the warmth that comes through father. So dads are really, really important in that. Moms are into the number two way, so we're up there too. But dads are really, really important, and they also need to know how. A lot of times men are expected to just know what to do, but they also have to be taught and trained.
Yeah.
It's maddening. You're just supposed to know. And hey, if nobody's ever showed you, how are you supposed to, how are you supposed to figure it out? I know a big incentive for me, I was talking about the kids, but a big incentive for me in starting this out was I just have a heart for parents that want to do the job right. You want to build into the faith of your kids. I mean, I've got 3 children. I want all of them to love Jesus and to follow him. And I think every Christian parent wants that. But to not have the how laid out, maybe you didn't have a Christian family to grow up in. Maybe no one's discipled you. I've talked to so many men that have never had anybody significantly build into their lives before. And it breaks my heart because I was using the term outmanned or outgunned in the opening. It's so easy to feel that way when you look at the crush of the secular narratives that are coming on your family. I mean, how on earth, if you've got a normal life, you've got a job, you've got a mortgage, you've got things that you need to do, you got to take care of your own self, you got to get sleep, you want to have a relationship with your wife or with your husband, and then you're supposed to know how to respond to the gender war and all the stuff that's going on with transgenderism, age-old problems with us, like the theory of evolution, the abortion debate. There's so many, critical race theory, diversity, equity, inclusion, the whole DEI movement, all of that kind of stuff. The fact that sexuality has become boundary free today, there's so many different arguments and influences. There's no way to break free from your life long enough to go and study all of these things and become conversant in them well enough to be able to handle the questions they're going to come up with your kids or deflect the negative influences that are going to come in on that. It's like, how on earth are you supposed to do that?
Right. And yet ultimately you want your kids to be asking you those questions
Mhm.
because they're going to
Right.
have questions. Kids are hearing things in crazy places, whether it's at school or advertisements in games that they're playing or social media, YouTube, TikTok. Kids are hearing all
Local
kinds of
park.
things.
Mhm.
And if you're not engaging them in those conversations, they're going to be forming ideas about those conversations in other places. And you want it to be with you. You want to be the one who's feeding into
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Yeah, if it's not
Going
mom
there.
and dad, it's going to be Google or a chat room.
Mhm.
I can pretty much guarantee it. Something along those lines, and that's not where you want the information coming from. So really, my dream for legacy, and I think the vision that God put into my heart when I was sitting under the pine tree when I got this idea, was to be able to do the heavy lifting for the parents, to take all this stuff, to crunch it down, and to basically bring what you need to you in a street level fashion so that you can pick it up and run with it as you go through life. Because we've talked about this kind of stuff before. The moments that we get to build into our kids they're unscripted and they are unscheduled.
Yeah.
So my heart has always been to be able to come alongside moms and dads and to give them basically exactly what they need to handle these types of conversations when they come up.
Yeah, there's a verse that talks about being prepared in season and out of season to give a defense for the gospel. And that's really what we need to be able to do with our kids. We need to be ready in those moments, spur of the moment, when they ask a question, to be able to have an answer or to be able to say, let me get back to you, and to know that you can go find the answer and get back to them so that you're the one who is giving them that defense for the gospel.
And part of why we produce so many resources is so that you don't have to go search everywhere, but you can come straight to our site, look up what you're needing to look up, get something quickly on the topic that you need, and then go back with the answers.
Yeah.
So you're getting it from a solid source that you can trust, and it's quick.
For example, when we were still primarily back on the radio and just an audio podcast, I did a series on critical race theory. And I think we spent probably 7 conversations on that. It was 6 or 7. And I probably spent 3 months just reading original source material from the opposite side of the argument that I'm on, just so that I could be conversant in what the issues with it really were, because I want to be able to represent them fairly. Because if I don't, and then I represent that to my kids, then it devalues the quality of my answer and the believability of it and all that. So I put all that work in so that you wouldn't have to, and I condensed it down to this, basically as distilled it to the point where it was street level and usable.
And not only that, we had those conversations, but then we put together a critical race theory cheat sheet. And so that's one of those things. It's a free resource on our website that you can go in. All of the research that he did, it's all there, but it's in a very condensed format so that you can get all this huge content that's distilled down into something that's really understandable. It's street level. So you can understand it, and then you can take it to your kids.
And one of the things that one of you guys just pointed out was the questions that our kids asked. That was another big driving force for launching Legacy. It was one of the things that God used to get my attention, because I actually didn't expect my kids to ask me really hard questions until they got older, kind of like the age that they are now. But much to my surprise, it was very different. They started coming at like 6, 7, 8 years old. And I've shared with you guys some of the questions my kids have asked. The Saturday morning when I'm not awake and I'm driving to Sprouts with my daughter in the car, and she springs, "Hey, Dad, is abortion murder?" It's like, I wasn't ready for that.
Not at that age. Why would she even know what abortion is at 6 years old?
Yeah, they know a lot more than you think that they do. So yeah, that was a wake up call. My son, who was probably just trying to avoid going to sleep that night, but he was in bed, and he fires this question at me. It's like, "Dad, there's so many religious books out there. How do we know that the Bible is true?" Excellent question. It's the kind of thing I want him to ask me. But it's like, okay, so how do I answer that? Number one. And then how can I resource you to be equipped to answer that question when it comes up? Because really, you don't get a long period of time to go and read a book on, you can get on Amazon and find yourself a book, and then 222 pages later and 10 chapters in a study guide, maybe you've got an answer, then you go back and they don't even remember they asked the question at that point. So it's like, what kind of resources can I put together for that? Because they're going to ask you questions that throw you. And it's like, I've got years of experience in ministry and more than enough training, and it was hard for me to walk through it. So I thought, you know what, I want to make it easy for moms and dads all over the place to be able to do that stuff.
Yeah.
So who are we, Steve?
Who are we?
Yeah,
We're
that's
crazy.
a question that I get a lot. Like they want to know, what is this relationship we have between us and who are we?
Well, we have a team of there's what is there 4 of us that are full-time staff, and then a team of volunteers that have come around us. We are pastors, we are educators, public and private. Those 2 are right over there. Melissa, you were a public school teacher for quite a while, and Amy, I'm sure we'll go into that more later. You taught in the private sector in Christian schools. Retired missionaries, people with coaching experience, people with mentoring experience, people who have studied discipleship, so discipleship specialists, and Christian apologists, some of my favorite people because they get to answer all the hard questions that I can't answer. But yeah, that's pretty much our team. Pastors, educators, missionaries, coaches, mentors, discipleship specialists, and Christian apologists.
So sitting here, just so you can get to know us, Steve and I are married. We've been married for almost 25 years. And Amy is my sister. And it took several years of us prodding her to come on staff, but it was the best day when she said, yes, I'm ready. So yeah, that's who we are sitting here.
It's like the Lord prying my hands off of education. But really, he's just expanded my teaching circumference, that it's not just children now, but parents and grandparents in cases. I'm still teaching, just in a different format.
Amy, you've got a very interesting past, so we'll just start with you. I mean, if set a context, okay, say I'm a parent and I'm looking at Legacy Family Ministries and I'm thinking, how can you help me? And do I want your help? I mean, I don't know you, so tell me a little bit about you. I think you're an easy one to start because you have like kind of a colorful, in a good way, past. Because you've been around the world. You were a foreign missionary for a while. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about, you know, the countries that you worked in, the kinds of things that you've experienced, the training that you've had, things like that. Because if I'm a mom and I'm looking for mentorship, you know, that might help me out to get to know how I might connect with you.
Well, to start, I am a single mom. I've been a single mom for 13 years. So I raised my children mostly alone with my family nearby. So my kids are now 19, 17, and 16. I'm a college student and 2 high schoolers. So I've gone through the raising kids, all those stages with them, and also some of that separation stuff that's going on now, the new phases of life that we're stepping into. Prior to that, I was a missionary overseas for 11 years. I served in Austria to start. I was a nanny for missionaries a couple different times. India, Kazakhstan, and South Korea are the 4 main places that I've been to, but I've traveled to, I guess I can add one more now because I just went to a new country a few weeks ago. So 49 different countries. Unique fact is all above the equator. I've never been below the equator before, so someday we'll get there. I've always loved travel. I've loved missions. My heart has always been to see people come to Christ, although evangelism is not my forte. I'm not very good at going up and talking to strangers. But teaching is where God had me really centered. So teaching in missionary kids schools, teaching English in Korea for a number of years. I was part of founding a high school in Busan, South Korea, for businessmen and missionary kids who are returning to Korea. So then I became head of the English department. So I hired staff and trained them, wrote the curriculum. I got to teach the like British literature, kind of the high school level classes, the American high school level classes, which I loved. It turns out I really liked doing that. We ended up having a lot of North Korean refugees come to the school. So then teaching them English and how to speak in English. So some of my former students are, I've got one that's in Parliament in England right now, a top physicist in Germany right now. So it's neat to see how many of the people I've taught over the years, what they're doing now. A lot of missionaries, a lot of pastors that I have taught when they were young. And then the last 8 years, I kind of switched from the upper high school, middle school down to the lower. I went from teaching seniors in high school to kindergarten, and that was quite a stretch for me, having never taught kindergarten before, but the last 8 years was kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. So a lot of education, Christian education for the most part. I was in public school for 1 year, but otherwise Christian schools around the world, all around the world.
One of the things that I appreciate about your background, Amy, that you bring is in this particular culture that we're living in here, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest challenges that we run into is building in that set of basic foundational truths that define how our kids see the world and figure out how it operates. It's basically called worldview.
Mhm.
And since you've been in so many different cultures and you've taught at different levels, I think you bring a special perspective to that whole thing because, I mean, you've lived outside of this
Mhm.
culture. You've encountered a wide variety of worldviews and seen how they
Mhm.
affect the kids. And now you can bring that experience back here
Yeah.
and build it into the parents who can then build it into their families,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah, one of the things I enjoy doing is mentoring, and I'm seeing an increase in need of mentorship, and not just the need for it, but the desire for it. I'm hearing a lot of women requesting that they want to be mentored, and can you please mentor me? And that's just coming alongside and helping answer questions and being friends. And this is a great way to do life. This is what God's word says, just kind of coming alongside women, but there's an increased need for it. So I tend to think of myself as mentor to millennial moms.
Well,
a
you
lot of
should just
M's.
think of yourself that way. I mean, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's what I see on your to-do list.
Mhm. I do a lot of it.
And then there's Melissa.
Yeah, which I have a very different story than my sister does. We both graduated from Southwestern Bible College, which is now Arizona Christian University. And then I taught in public education for 7 years. During that time, Steve and I got married, and I entered into the world of being a pastor's wife as well as teaching in school. And that was something that I wanted to do, not because I wanted to lead all of these ministries, but because I wanted to be the support system for my husband. And that was something that I longed for. It was in my heart. And so when he stepped out of church ministry and into missionary life, I still was in that role. And I really liked it, kind of in the background where nobody knew me and I could just do my thing and be his support system. But as we've grown in ministry, God has called me more out of that. And he said, no, I've given you a voice too. And so here we are doing the podcast every week. I love writing. I am able to do blogs and our newsletters and pretty much all the administrative stuff that goes on to make Legacy function that lands on my desk. So
And it could not happen without you.
But I found over time that that's really my sweet spot. I love doing that. I love being an administrator and I love making things happen so that other people can do their work. So God has just kind of called me to clear the cobwebs and to sweep the floor and to make things so that they're nice and clean and neat so other people can do their jobs.
And I am so thankful for you because it's true. Without you, Legacy wouldn't be where we are now.
Right.
We learned early on in our marriage that I'm big picture and she's details. So I get to fire up the engines and, launch the rocket off the pad. And then she makes sure everything is in place so that we can stay in the air.
Our staff meetings, lots of big ideas, and then you get to
Yeah,
make
it
them
all
all
falls
happen.
on her.
Bring it down to earth.
But that's not all you do. You actually have a real job too.
I do. I am a real estate broker when I'm not doing all of the legacy work. So I am an associate broker with Soretta Realty Group here in the Phoenix area. And even with the Sorettas, I am the administrative person. I do a lot of the back work, the paperwork, all that lands on my desk as well as working with some clients.
Yeah. I originally backed into ministry, I think. I had it in my head that I was going to go to medical school. And the reason that I'm not there is actually a longer story. But I was on a short-term mission project with Campus Crusade. I was suffering for Jesus in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Your favorite joke about missions.
And it was awesome. It was a life-changing summer. And that's when God called me into full-time ministry. So I didn't quite know what that looked like. And then I went back home, a couple of years pass, and I get invited to plant a church. I had no idea what I was getting into. If I had known, I would have run screaming into the night because church planting it's an exciting, but it's very, very challenging. And I planted a church over in California, became a pastor when I had never even preached a sermon before, which was kind of nuts. So it was back when church planting was in the U.S. was just starting to take shape into a thing. And no one really knew what they were doing yet. So I think a lot of them practiced on me, which is why my hair is so thin. And that was probably the first decade of my vocational ministry. I was a church planter over in Southern California, and had a really interesting ride, a lot of highs, a lot of lows in that ministry. But I transitioned out of that to come over here, served in a much bigger church for 3 years. That was a whole different experience. I was primarily the teaching pastor at that point. So I had a lot of years behind a microphone by that point, a lot of time, content development, sermons, stuff like that, Bible studies, and was very involved as much as possible, as much as my schedule would allow, into discipleship and creating discipleship programs and things like that. And then God turned the page on us, and we ended up on a missions agency. Back then it was called Church Resource Ministries. They changed their name now. It's called Novo. And we were tasked with with the challenge of mobilizing people for mission that were already in the church in the U.S. So it was very much a discipleship thing. And the request came to CRM and to my then mentor from churches that had grown a lot in the seeker-sensitive movement. And the pastors were saying, okay, we've got thousands of people in our church. Now, how do we get them back out of the door into the world so that they can be salt and light to the world? So they came to us and said, okay, we want you to develop a team to make that happen. So that's actually when I started working with families. I just didn't know it yet because all my time was invested in the pastors and the leaders that were running those ministries.
Well, and it was during that time that our 3 children were born. So we went from 0 kids to 3 in a 26-month period of time.
Yeah.
On top of raising support and starting a new team and a new ministry.
Small detail. And then I got sick on it, but I got well. So here we are.
Good.
But that was a fun 10 or 11 years, whatever it turned out to be. We never saw any huge explosive ministries come out of it, but we saw a lot of wins along the way. It was really exciting. God really ramped us up in our own personal faith at that time. And it was the transition out of that. Also I was doing a lot of coaching with church planters and other leaders during that time. But it was at the end of that season, of course, that God said, here's what I want you to do next. It was one of those things where I was feeling very much like a transition was coming and didn't know quite what it was, and was at the tail end of a vacation and said, okay, I got at least 20 years left, God, what do you want me to do with it? And it was the first time in all the ministries that I had been a part of starting, whether it was coaching or in them myself, it was the first time that God downloaded the entire thing like that. It was like the vision for Legacy came instantly, and it has never changed. Mm-hmm. And somewhere in there, I got a master's degree in my doctorate in ministry from Talbot School of Theology, which is an awesome school, by the way. If you're looking for a good seminary, thumbs up for them. But yeah, and here we are.
And so out of that, this team was formed and Legacy was launched.
Yeah, and out of mostly the volunteers, I have a very good friend. I'll just say his name because give him some press. His name is Robbie Lashua. He is a full-time staff member with Stand to Reason Ministries. But since he's a good friend, he helps us out a lot of time. He's kind of like my go-to apologetics guy right now. He's going to be at our family camp that's coming up this summer teaching. He's amazing. Great resource. We have at least 3 teachers that I can think of right now that teach in the Christian schools. These are people who have won awards for their teaching. They're the people on campus that the kids love, that they are with us every year at our family camp. They're teaching like elementary and junior high grade and high school now. And just amazing people. The couple who takes care of our little ones have been in nursery and toddler like level ministry for how many decades?
5 decades, probably 50 years or more.
And they're just incredible people, Ken and Teresa. We just are blessed with a team of people around us that is more than I could have ever hoped for.
Right. Love kids, love families, and really want to build into that so that the next generation can be strong in the Lord.
Yeah, these are people who they just bleed this. It comes out of them.
Yeah.
So the next question, which is really the one that is the most important, is how can we best serve you? What do we do that can help you, to come alongside you, to be that encouragement, to give you that training and the resources? And there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But the first one, obviously, is this podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have a lot of fun getting to come in here every week and getting to talk and to share God's word. I think we really have a passion for God's word, and the more you know the word of God, the more you'll be able to share that with your children.
And every week when we come in here, we try to take one issue, one challenge, one tool that you need, and break it down into that street level form so that you can pick it up while you're doing whatever you're doing when you're watching this, and something that you can actually use in your house that day. And this actually started as a radio show, and then it went on to podcast, and then we kind of moved with the culture in a good way. Everything is going to video, so now here we are in a video format.
Yeah, in addition to that, we have on our website a lot of resources that you can download that Melissa's put a lot of time and effort into creating for you. So they're easy to access. Like we talked before, CRT, 10 tips to intentionality, how to raise your children, 10 steps to raise them with intentionality. And
yeah, well, and we've been in the app development process for the last 4 months. So I'm super excited that our app right now, as you're listening to this, if you go to your app store, check and see if it's on there. If not, check back really soon because it should be done any day now.
Awesome.
So Legacy Family Ministries, you can download our app. And then on that app, all of our blogs, which how many are on there, Steve? Over 100.
There are hundreds
of blogs that we have on there. All of the audio podcasts and then the new videos are all on there. The downloadable resources that Amy was just mentioning, all of that is free to you on that app. So we're super excited to be able to have it all in one easy to find location where you can just click the button and open the app. And every week the new content will be there ready for you.
You no longer have to go to the computer or try to type it into your phone, the website, super accessible.
Right.
So I am excited about that.
Well, and then in addition to that, to everything that you see on the website or in the app, we have spent the last 2 years developing our first books. We've got them right here. Amy is the author of The Heart of the Kingdom, which is a wonderful, wonderful illustrated story for girls about a princess. And this year we'll have the boys' book out. It is almost through illustration. Yeah. And we saw some more illustrations on that yesterday. They are absolutely amazing, really beautiful. So she's been working on the kids' books. And then we've got our first print resource out right now. It's called Fear Not, 21 Days to Fearless Living, which is a prayer journal. So it's very hands-on for you to be able to have the Word of God, how God talks about fear, and then where you can spend some time journaling and just listening to God and what is he saying to you on how you can lay aside fear and live fearlessly in the Lord. So both of these books right now are available on Amazon where you can go and get them. And then there will be more that we'll have, more resources we have. We'll eventually get those on the app as well.
And we have our first small group study guide coming out later this year. It's in the publication process right now, but it's 12 weeks to do with other parents around you on those practical steps of how to raise your children in the Lord.
And that's called Parenting Unscripted. So be watching for that. We are very excited. That should be out this fall, I believe. So lots coming your way in the near future.
Yeah, and every single one of these tools that they've mentioned is designed to meet you at a street level place with real challenges that you're going to face as a Christian parent, raising your kids to follow Jesus in the culture that we live in. So we try to be very culturally aware. We are not afraid to tackle the tough issues. We've done that in the past, and go into the conversations that some people are afraid to go into. And hopefully, at the end of the day, after using the resources, you'll be able to get the answer that you need quickly so that you can build into your child and in the context of whatever challenge that they're facing, whatever you're going through. So I was almost joking earlier that, you don't have to go and order a book and read the whole thing and do the study guide and all that. I said, that's just not realistic. So the idea is to take these tools and have something in hand right now that you can use as in business, they call it a just-in-time resource to resource your kids so they can grow up in Jesus. The one thing that we didn't mention is the short videos. I was inspired years ago by PragerU's 5-minute videos, how they can take a very complex topic and just shrink it down to its essence and deliver something to you that's memorable and usable. So I thought I want to do that with our material, and found out it's a lot harder to do than it looked going into it. But we are not giving up. We do have a small stock of videos set up already. That's going to be expanding, and I have a new friend that's going to help me make it all searchable using the good part of AI. So I'm hoping that we can get that on the app as quickly as possible. So if a question or a challenge comes up, you'll be able to just pull up whatever resource it is right there, boom, and now you've got the information that you need to address the situation at hand.
Then we've got our family camps and some vision casting that we're looking forward to the future. So.
Yeah, we've got family camp that we do every year. So every year we usually have one family camp that we do. In the past, it's been in Prescott. This year it'll be in Pine Top. And we love getting families together all in one place, face-to-face time of just being able to build into families and then being able to go and have fun together. Big picture, though, our big dream for the future would be to own our own camp. Yeah. And we are just praying and seeking God regarding that. If that happens to be something that's on your heart as well, please contact us because we'd like to meet you because we want to know the people that God is bringing to make that vision happen.
Yeah, that would upgrade the kind of investment that we'd be able to make in families by like 100.
Absolutely.
I think that would be great. And by the way, I didn't really expect this. I probably should have. But when we started a family camp the first time, it sold out the first year, and it has sold out every single year since then. And that's true for this upcoming summer too. We're actually trying to expand the number of rooms available so that we can bring more families in because we've got people on the waiting list that I want to be able to attend. Part of the idea behind the family camp is I don't like to work all the times. I like to have some fun. So the whole idea behind the camps was bring families together. You can reconnect. So when you come to camp, you don't get spread out into dorms, guys over here, girls over there. You stay together as a family. You eat together as a family. You play together as a family. We take close to half of our time and we put it into just an investment into family time together for activities and things like that. Sometimes they're organized, sometimes they're not. And then half of the time into some relevant instruction. Like earlier, I was talking about the difficulty that you have in trying to grasp all these different narratives that are coming at you and inoculate your kids against them with the truth of Scripture. Well, we're actually going to show you how to do that. So very, very, very useful, very relevant tool for parenting in this culture. And every year it's something different.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with it. So you might be wanting to know, how does all of this happen? How do you make that happen? Well, Legacy is a tax-deductible organization. We are a nonprofit. So we really rely on donors to be able to fund this and to make it all happen. We love our ministry partners. And if you're listening to this right now and you're going, man, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of strengthening the family. We want you to be a part of that. So we would just really invite you to come to our website, legacyfamilyministries.com, come to our donor page, and you can give right there. You can do a one-time donation. You can become a donor on a monthly basis. We would really love for you to join our team of people who make this happen on a day-to-day basis. We need more donors in order to keep growing and keep producing the resources that we're doing. So we would just invite you to come. Another way to give would be to text GIVE to 602-878-7814. And you can get a link sent straight to your phone that will take you to that giving portal.
Yes, I just second everything that she said. And if you do go to the website, remember it's legacyfamilyministries.com. There is more than one Legacy Family Ministry. So we are legacyfamilyministries.com. And we really do believe this. Our heart beats for the family. That means it beats for yours. Our dream is for your kids to follow Jesus for their whole life. So that's why we're here. And we really do believe that we can come alongside you and help make you a pro in raising your kids with unshakable faith. So thanks for joining us this week. We look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great one.